Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia Podcast Network. And on this episode, Melbourne City are champions and were the top of the footballing world for all of about 5 minutes until reality came sinking back in. We'll chat their grand final win as well as their disappointing performance in the AFC Women's Champions League semi-finals matchup. Elsewhere, Joe Montemurro has named his 24-player squad for the upcoming 2-game window against Mexico. We'll chat all of that, including the surprise inclusion of a goalkeeper to the ranks. We'll hear from Joe Montemurro and Kaitlyn Torpey, and we'll discuss whether or not Michael Mitriciani actually knows what a burner account is on this episode of the Dubcast. You've got myself, Poletti, being joined, as always, by Burke. And I guess we'll start there, Burke. Do we actually think Michael Mitriciani was being serious in his press conference and that he knows or that he doesn't know what a burner account is?
Look, I was there. I will say at that point, my concentration had kind of waned from the presser itself and was more so focused on whether or not my phone was waterlogged with champagne. But he did look very confused, like genuinely confused. So I'm gonna have to say he doesn't know what a burner is and was being genuine, because we did have, like, it was explained to him, like, I think twice before he was like, oh, no, I don't have one in the, like, I'm just looking at on my account. So I believe Mitriciani.
And then I guess that leads to my second question, specifically about the press conference. Did you take Joey Lynch's advice and put your phone onto the table in front of the table?
Yes, my phone was, but that's just how, enthusiastic they were, which is fair enough. They just won the championship. But they were very enthusiastic with their water and their champagne and their spraying business. And so my phone was on that lower table, and was very soggy. So Melbourne City, if you see an invoice coming your way for excess in $800, no, that's a joke. My phone is fine. It's on its last legs, but that actually, I will say that on recording, has nothing to do with Melbourne City. It's just very old. But if you see that invoice,
well, we'll start there properly. Melbourne City are your 2026 A-League Women champions. It was Melbourne City 3, Wellington Phoenix 1 on Saturday afternoon at Amy Park. Holly McNamara with a brace in the first half. Letitia McKenna just after half-time with an absolute worldie from outside of the box. A literally unsavable shot from Letitia McKenna. Michaela Woods got one back for the Wellington Phoenix, but it was a consolation goal in the end, and Melbourne City were able to see out the game quite comfortably at the end of it. And Burke, it gives them a trophy that has eluded them since before COVID.
yeah, literally like just before everything properly shut down, it was Steph Catley's last goal for the club, and somehow it was a goal scored by her as a defender that won them that one. But this time, yeah, they've finally done it, and their goals were scored by people who were meant to be mostly scoring the goals. Yeah, those 2 goals from Holly Mack, 2 in 2 minutes, just insane. I could barely believe my eyes. The first one especially, because who does that? Who shoots from there? Like, that's such a ridiculous angle. But, I mean, if you're given that kind of time and space, you might as well. Yeah, and the second one, to me, felt really like vintage Holly Mack, where she takes off on the run. A really great assist on that one from Shelby McMahon. Kind of wiggled her way out of a few players closing in on her, and then just played the perfect through ball for McNamara to run onto, and then she puts it away from a tight angle, just excellent stuff. The McKenna goal was spectacular. She did say in the mix zone later on that she, you know, took a little inspiration from Holly and was like, well, if she can do it, why can't I? And she did. She really did. Um, yeah, it was a really solid performance from Melbourne City. I don't know if I want to say it was a better performance than their last grand final appearance against Sydney, but I guess it was better because they won this one, but it was definitely different. Mostly, I think, because Sydney, not these days, but Sydney are usually very well experienced in grand finals. Wellington, obviously, not their day, but also their first ever grand final appearance. So Bev spoke a lot about the sense of occasion, maybe having gotten to them a little bit, which honestly, understandable, all things considered. Um, yeah, they really should not have left Holly McNamara and Letitia McKenna in so much space for those goals. The really wide out space, like in space goals that they took. You you can't let players like that have that kind of room because they're going to punish you for it. And they did. But yeah, they did look a little out of sorts, Wellington, I felt. Obviously, they got their one goal back from Michaela Woods. I was fully expecting her to get on the score sheet, and she did. Um, and I want to say on the record, when she scored that goal, I did in the press box say, that's a consolation goal, and everyone yelled at me because they were like, it's the 50th, it's like the 55th minute, Burke, you can't. I'm never wrong, just early. Guys, come on. Come on. Um, so yeah, vindication on my part. And vindication on my part for actually picking City to win. I was not correct on the goals, but I did say they were going to win. I said 2-1, it was 3-1. Never wrong, just early. Don't ask about the Champions League predictions. I actually don't know what a Champions League is. Uh, yeah, it was a really good final. Um, I really enjoyed watching the matchup between Aiden Keane and Brooke Nunn, but I feel like a lot of people enjoyed that matchup. It was a bit of a rage bait off to see who would who would be baited first. Um, I feel actually though they were both very cool, calm and level headed, which may be surprising to some. I will not say whether or not I am some. Yeah, I think yeah, it was a really good final. Some absolute wonder goals that are just the ones you want to see scored in finals. Um, yeah, I think City had a really good performance all across the park. Mires was good in goals as she is wont to do. I think Turner had a really good game as well. Um, yeah, there was a lot of stuff as well for Wellington to, you know, take from this and be proud of from this. Of course, getting to their first ever grand final is an achievement in and of itself. Mackenzie Barry was phenomenal. Another likely thing for her to be doing. Yeah, it was a really good game. Obviously, not the result that Wellington wanted, but yeah, it's a grand final. Someone has to win.
Yeah, someone has to win, someone has to lose. I don't want to give a I don't want to give a shout out for this question that I'm going to ask you here to Jason Pine, who I was listening to on the Football Fever podcast that he does with Michael Burgess, and he brought up what looked like a very key absence for the Wellington Phoenix. So basically, they had a CJ Bott size hole in midfield, and I want your thoughts on that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely noticeable. She'll be back next season though, because she's out because of pregnancy. congratulations to her. We did see her, actually. She was there. She was in the tunnel after the game having a little chat with Stoddy. Um, yeah, they definitely could have used her, someone with all her experience in, high stakes situations. She, yeah, definitely could have been used on the park for them. But, they want to, Wellington want to go again next year. They want to be back in the grand final next year. So we may see a different story should CJ Butts return or go to plan. God willing, Sidhu Walla, inshallah, all that. But yeah, I can definitely see that point. It's not one that I'd actually thought that much about because I'm so used to seeing Wellington as they are. I also think Grace Jale had a really good showing, not just in the game, but like across the season. I mean, she was awarded their like player of the season, I believe. And yeah, she was really well deserving of that. She's a great player. I've been a fan since she appeared at Heidelberg United. Throwback.
Just got to get the Heidelberg reference in there somehow. Which,
if there is one
fair,
thing I will do,
yep,
it is shoehorn Heidelberg in somehow. I will make it happen.
You will shoehorn Heidelberg in, and I'll find a way to talk about NPL New South Wales. Look, that is a given. We this is part of the deal. We know this. I guess you mentioned the Sydney FC Grand Final, and that was obviously the last time Melbourne City played in a Grand Final before this. I mean, I guess that final sort of didn't entirely allow Melbourne City to play the way that they should have, or maybe that they wanted to, because they would have been preparing for a Sydney FC that was willing to take the game on, and Ante Uric just basically shut up shop for the 90 minutes. They hit a goal on the counter, and that was enough for it, and City weren't able to break it down. Whereas, the way I looked at this game is they were very much able to control the game. They were able to dominate it. They were able to play dominant attacking football, and they were rewarded for that. I guess, the Wellington Phoenix are a side that have still never beaten Melbourne City. We know they don't like playing in Melbourne. I think it's just the 3 draws against Victory. I want to say it is. They can't. There's something about the city of Melbourne that they don't like. I don't know. I just feel like, this game was made for Melbourne City to come out and basically get rid of all their demons.
Yeah, I tend to agree. They call Porirua their fortress. I fear the city of Melbourne is a Melbourne fortress that they just haven't been able to break down just yet. But, I have no doubt that that'll come for them. They're too sort of solid of a squad to not eventually do it. I'd be surprised if they go another season without actually collecting any points in Melbourne. I would actually be a little concerned if they didn't.
Yeah, they'll be the better for this experience, I think, is probably the best way to look at it. We know Bev Priestman's coming back. We know that they've got a number of players coming back as well. Obviously talked about CJ Bott, coming back, or at least we expect her to come back next season anyway. Probably expecting Samba to, be recovered from her ACL injury and come back as well. I remember Samba went down in like the first half of the season. So like they've been playing without, their star striker for good 2/3 of the season. So like I'm not saying she would have made the difference on Saturday, but it never hurts when you can
say that she wouldn't have made the difference either.
Exactly. It's always good when you can put a player like that into the lineup. I guess, and sort of like a question we got from Sinan Jayatipu on Blue Sky. After people questioned why City signed her, was Dan Turner one of the underrated players of the season? And you mentioned her, Burke, when you were talking about, you think so?
I do, yeah. I think she really grew into her role at left back. I think, yeah, she had a really good season the further along it went. Yeah, she's clearly well liked by the squad and by the coaching staff. Matriciani mentioned at the second semi-final that they'd been running a contest amongst the squad throughout the entire season, and the winner was getting a prize. He didn't elaborate any further, but he said he'd actually had to find a second and third place prizes because Dan Turner had just run off with the results. So he was like, I gotta, like, everyone knows that she's already won this. So yeah, she's clearly very well liked. And yeah, just a really good quality left back, very assured in her football, which is definitely something you want to see from a left back.
Hopefully that answers your question. I mean, you asked a question. I think that's as straightforward as an answer as you're going to get there on that question. To be honest, and remember, if you want to send us a question, I am going to try. I mean, we've only got a couple more episodes left before we take our off-season break. But get it. Let us know on YouTube. Let us know on the social media. When I put the call outs, or just hit us up, and we'll try to answer the question for you as best as we can. I know I was a little bit slack on it this season, but it was a busy season. I mean, the fact that if you just scroll just a little bit down in your feed, you'll see about 25 days worth of episodes. That should tell you that it was a busy time. But we do appreciate all of our listeners. We hope that you appreciate the content that we're able to bring you each week as we talk women's football in Australia. I think we'll leave the grand final there because I guess all the other sort of discussions are sort of more suited for a season review that we'll get sorted out in the next few days or so ahead of the Matildas games against Mexico, which we'll touch on in just a moment. But first, it was Tokyo Verde 3, Melbourne City 1 in the AFC Women's Champions League semi-final. 2 goals inside 10 minutes for Tokyo Verde. Deficit was halved just before half-time, and then I think it was about the 70th minute, off the top of my head or so, it was made 3-1. Melbourne City are out of the AFC Women's Champions League. Obviously had to travel to Suwon, quite early on Sunday morning. I know that Tokyo Verde played on Saturday as well, but obviously you can't really compare the travel times between Australia to South Korea versus Japan to South Korea, which is one of the it's one of the problems of being on the being in the AFC but not being on the Asian continent itself. I mean, the weather conditions were horrible, but both sides have to play in the conditions. Obviously, Tokyo Verde, conformed to the conditions a lot easier. Melbourne City just looked kind of shell-shocked coming out of the gates, didn't they, Burke?
Yeah, they looked really, really unlike themselves in the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. It was a bit of a hard watch, honestly. There were a couple of calls for, like, in both directions as well that felt really out of place to me. But I'm not a referee, so don't question me on that. I don't have the cards. Yeah, they looked, yeah, like you said, shell-shocked and kind of like they hadn't really made it out of the rooms, if that makes sense. Like they were still waiting to come on to the pitch. Yeah, that I can't, like, you can't even really blame Tokyo for the goals or anything. Like they were gorgeous goals. I've worded that really badly. You know what I mean. They were really well worked goals. There was nothing you could really. There was something you could probably have done, but there was nothing that City were gonna do to stop them. But yeah, I think all across the park, it was just kind of the complete opposite performance that they gave in the grand final. But that's football. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and I really do think that the travel affected them. I mean, traveled for nearly 24 hours, as what City said. Yeah, it kind of sucks because they didn't even get to really celebrate the grand final win because they had like a celebration with like friends and family and stuff at Amy Park, like in the what do they call it, the conference rooms or whatever stuff they have on level 2 on the opposite side from where the media box is. And then after that they went to a hotel. Like they didn't even go home that night, and then they got on a plane at 5 a.m. and traveled for nearly 24 hours. So, and now they have to come back all like dejected and sad and be like, yay, we won the grand final a week ago and then we got smacked. Like, situation sucks on every front. I kind of really don't like this setup for the Champions League, if that makes sense. At least the timing of it for Australia, because obviously you said Tokyo Verde played on Saturday as well, but they're not playing their grand final, were they? They were just playing like a regular season game. So it's not like they had everything on the line like City did. So I think that really changes the stakes of a semi-final as well, because obviously, you want to do your very best in a semi-final, but if you've got the grand final of your own league, you're going to put everything on the line for that. And once you've done that, there's not going to be that much left a few days later.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one, right? Because I guess, like I know obviously there was the Asian Cup break this year that extended international break in February. That sort of meant the season, got extended a little bit longer than maybe what it could have, should have. I'm not the schedule makers. I'm not the one who deals with that. But it's just. But it was the same situation last year, right? Which didn't have an Asian Cup in it, where it was the grand final was going to be played, and then the players, Melbourne City were going to go into the hub, right? We know Melbourne City have got Champions League football next year already booked. We know they're probably going to, waltz their way through to the semi-finals again, barring an upset. It took an offside call in the semi-finals to stop them from playing the grand final last year. Like, I don't know. I know we have 2 seasons of this current iteration of the AFC Women's Champions League to go off, right? And so I'm prefacing the point I'm about to raise with an incredulously small sample size that you probably can't take too much out of. However, we saw Melbourne City get knocked out in the semi-finals, and they lost the final on penalties. They made it all the way through, 210 minutes of football and get to penalties and lose, right? And they were staring at, another 30 minutes of football until Shelby McMahon, with like moments to spare in that semi-final, sealed it in normal time for Melbourne City against the South Korean side. I don't remember which one it was. So my apologies there, but and then this year they make the grand final and they're at the semi-finals with 3 days of turnaround time, one of which was basically taken out due to travel. It's an incredulously small sample size, and I'm aware of how small the sample size is, but we have 1 season of them making the final, 1 season of them not making the final, and the correlation is the time off, or lack of time off. If you're the APL, you're the schedule makers, we know Melbourne City are going to be in and around the conversation this time of year, right? They always are. It's just the way Melbourne City are. They dominate the league. It's like, for the last few years, they've been scheduled away in the last round of the season. And it's like, how, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Like how many times when Melbourne City are more than likely going to be in contention for the Premier's play, you're going to schedule them away from home on the last day of the season? Like, at some point, that's got to change.
Tinfoil hat.
Like, at some point, that's got to change, right? Like, just I'm not saying you should guarantee them home ground advantage in the last weekend of the season, but like it would
Think
save them
about the
having to.
success of the league, guys.
It would save them having to lift the trophy at halftime of a men's game, which is what they've had to do for
Oh
the
my
last couple of
God.
years.
If I have to see them do that one more time, I'm going to show up on the AVL's doorstep and I will be wearing a tinfoil hat. Be like, you guys, why are you guys prejudiced against Melbourne City football? Why are you prejudiced against City football? Many people should be prejudiced against City football, but you are not one of them.
But but I say that's the point where it's like, at some point the grand final cannot be scheduled days before teams are due to go into the hub, because I don't think we're losing this hub format for the semi-finals and the final of the AFC Women's Champions League anytime soon. So surely there's got to be a way you can leave a week gap, because as I said, we know Melbourne City are going to be there in and around the conversation this time of year. Do we not want our sides to be performing well in Asia? Like, I don't know. Like I said, I know small sample size, but I think that's something that needs to change going forward, Burke.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I kind of alluded to it myself, but yeah, you're completely right. It does at this point feel like, or at least it's starting to feel like, they're maybe being a little bit targeted or just like not really supported by the league. Like, obviously, I don't think any side should be shown favoritism, but we know City, like you've said, we know City football is good enough to win the Premiership, is good enough to win the league. It should be good enough. It nearly was good enough to win football in Asia. And even if it's not City, I think every team should be given, at least whichever Australian team it is, should be given at least a week. Even if it was my mortal enemies Sydney FC. I also think they should be given a week to have a fighting chance in it, and the ability to play their grand final, if like whoever it is, if they're in the grand final, knowing that they can play the grand final to the fullest extent and not have to think about, or not have to wake up the next morning with their legs completely cooked, being like, oh, I've just completely compromised the Champions League. Like, let's be serious. Let's be I don't know who I think I am asking Australia to be a serious footballing nation. Sorry. I take that back. Can we pretend that we're going to be serious? Maybe?
Yeah. I mean, and I do want to clarify, this is not a knock on Tokyo Verde. We know how strong Japan is.
They played a great game.
Yeah. We were all shocked when when Urawa got knocked out in the quarterfinals of last year's competition. So they didn't even make it into the hub stage of the Champions League. Like the Tokyo Verde, they're third in the WE League this year. Like, I think they're a good team. They're clearly a good team. We know the talent that comes out of Japan. Japan just beat Australia in the Asian Cup. This is not to discredit the opposition. I don't know. You just have to wonder, would this game have gone differently if Melbourne City were, had a week's rest in their legs and were allowed to properly celebrate the grand final win, and maybe wake up on Sunday morning with a hangover instead of waking up at 2 a.m. bleary-eyed. It's like, oh, well, we're off to the airport. Or 1 a.m., whatever it was. I don't know. I mean, what is it, 3 hours you're supposed to be at the airport for international flights? Like, what? But the point is that they would have had a disturbed night of sleep and then 24 hours of travel. So, it is what it is, unfortunately. But so Melbourne City out of the AFC Women's Champions League in 2025-26, but they will be back next season. We know that already by virtue of the fact that they won the Premiership. In the A-League Women, we'll head now to the Matildas squad announcement today from Joe Montemurro. A 24-player squad was named for this upcoming 2-game series against Mexico. a lot of the familiar names and faces: Mackenzie Arnold, Ellie Carpenter, Steph Catley, Caitlin Ford, Mary Fowler, Sam Kerr, Hayley Raso. Like we know the sort of names that we've come to expect by now. Even some of the newer, like I said, newer ones in quotes. At this point, it's probably just the ones that, like, there's over 50 caps, there's under 50 caps, and then there's under 10 caps. Like, I think that's the way you can sort of split things up at the moment. Your Claire Wheelers, your Caitlin Torpeys, your Emmy Simpsons, Courtney Nevin, those sorts of players in as well. Letitia McKenna back in for a second straight camp as well. Izzy Gomez as well. Chloe Lincoln comes back in as well. But the name that stood out for me on that list was Adelaide United and Young Matildas goalkeeper Alona Burke.
Yeah, it has to be. Adelaide are already running the line, Illy, the Tilly. It's good gear. But yeah, 17 and getting her first call up. I don't know if we'll see her on the pitch, but Joe was talking about it in the interviews about how it really was mostly about getting her settled into what the national team setup looks like at a senior level, because obviously she's played in the sort of underage sides. So yeah, I think it's really cool. She had a really great season with Adelaide. You can't deny that. Surprised she didn't make
when you steal the starting goalkeeper job off Claudia Jenkins, you must be a good talent.
Yeah. But yeah, I was kind of surprised to see she didn't get like the starting position on like the PFA Team of the Year. But she's 17. We've got plenty of time for Illy the Tilly.
Yeah, but someone comes in, that means someone misses out, and Tegan Micah still a noted absence from the Matilda squad. Did get a little bit of an update from Joe Montemurro, and in fact, what I'll do is I'll play for you now a couple of little snippets from Joe Montemurro's press conference that he did today at the squad announcement press conference.
Well, Joe, it looks like a very strong squad. You haven't really left anything in the tank, have you, so to speak?
Yeah, look, obviously we're looking at stabilising and continuing the work that we're doing, but also making sure that we're ready against different types of opposition, and that's why starting to look at a couple of other players that we think could go that next level, and giving that international experience. But again, just building on the work that we've done, building on the combinations that we're putting together, but more importantly, just painting pictures for teams that we could meet in the World Cup.
You mentioned looking at players wanting to go to the next level there, and you've got the likes of Izzy Gomez coming back, 2 caps, Alana Murphy coming back into the squad, 5 caps. But one standout name there for me is Alona Melee, 0 caps, Young Matildas, Adelaide United goalkeeper. What made you think that she was ready to come into the setup?
We've monitored her progress through her club, but more importantly, I had a good look at the Under-20 World Cup, the Under-20 Asian Cup, and she really suited the style we want to play, and we just felt that now's an opportunity to see where she's at, and obviously give her that experience with the squad, but more importantly to understand what it is to be part of the Matildas group. And it's great to give these players an opportunity moving forward, and and then we can assess it from there. But we felt the earlier we bring her in, the better it is going to be for her to really get used to the culture and the understanding of what we're trying to do.
You mentioned the opportunity there. One goalkeeper comes in, glaring absence. It continues to be Tegan Mike. Obviously, we know about her health issues. Do you have any update there for her?
Yeah, look, she's just progressing, concussion, and we all know her history with concussion hasn't been great. So we're just taking the time that's needed, and until all the medical advice directs us in the right way, then obviously Tegan will be considered again. But obviously it's one of those things where we just don't want to take any risks, and it's taken longer than what we thought. But it's really, really important that we're on the same page with Leon and obviously through our medical staff to make sure that she's right.
You mentioned, it being rewarding there to bring the A-League women players through. I guess sort of you mentioned as well prior to the Asian Cup squad there were quite a few on the periphery. Like, are you able to give us a rough idea of how many might be on the periphery and what they need to do to advance to the next level?
Well, look, I mean, it's like everything, performance. We've tried to be consistent with the messages of club performance. Will give you an opportunity to come into the national team. I think the biggest thing for me, once we've sent that message, is that our depth chart has grown. We have now players. I mean, Alana Murphy's probably the best example of that. She was struggling at Sand. Now she's playing at Forest. Consistently and playing well, and now she's been given an opportunity. So for me, the message is really, really simple: perform at club. That's what tells the story. The 90 minutes each week, and the professionalism each week at your club, and that'll give you an opportunity to come into the national team. But that message has been sent through to a lot of players, to make sure that coming into the Matildas isn't a given because of your name or who you are. It's because you're performing and you're going to suit what we're trying to do. And the importance of wearing that jersey is through reward of what you're doing, and you deserve that.
You look at, arguably one of the best players, probably a front runner for the Julie Dolan this season in Beth Gordon. I don't know, I asked you about this last time. What does someone like Beth have to do to make that breakthrough to get into the squad?
Look, again, it's one of those things where there is that consistency, which is really important, and more importantly, obviously, then you're looking at profiling of what we need in the national team and where that opportunity is going to come. Obviously, if you've got 6 forwards that are playing at the top level each week overseas, well, then it's obviously going to be difficult from that position profile. But we're well aware of where our depth needs a little bit of improvement, but more importantly, just continue to play and those opportunities will come.
Burke, I mean, we just, a little bit of an update there on Tegan Micah as well, taking the time that she needs, and that, no one wants to risk anything, and it's just making sure everyone's on the same page, and that, ultimately it's player safety comes first, right?
Yeah, when it comes to injuries of any kind, obviously, you need to take precaution. When it comes to head injuries, brain injuries, you have to take an even greater, like the greatest level of caution, in my opinion. And I'm really glad that they're doing that. Obviously, it's highly unlikely she will hear this, but if Tegan Micah decides that this is it for her footballing career because of that, you have to absolutely respect it. And in my opinion, she'll still go down as an incredible goalkeeper in Australian football, because you can't really deny that, even if we only have a small sample size of international games from her. Yeah, I would love to see her come back to the national stage. I'd love to see her come back to even just, club football, but whatever it may, like, whatever the end result is what it is. Like, obviously, football is the players' lives, but you will have a life after football, and it's very important that you have, a healthy brain after that. But yes, I'm really, really glad to hear that from Pep, that they're taking it super seriously, because, yeah, these things aren't to be trifled with. They're not any other kind of injury that you can get playing a sport.
No, they're not. I mean, we get one brain, right? And being able to look after it. I mean, there's a reason the term punch drunk came about, right? Because, boxing, repeated concussions, all of that. We know how disastrous the effects of, repeated concussion trauma can be to a brain. And, there's a whole, number of unfortunate cases over the years, of what happens in that situation. So, just being able to, I mean, I think, Daniel McBreen has talked about it a little bit recently on, some of the shows he's on, whether that be Total A-Leagues or, the A-League Off Air podcast, just sort of like, he's kind of struggling a touch and is like, oh, is this concussion? Is this that or whatever? So like we know the negative impacts of it. So yeah, just player safety first and foremost. The other thing, looking at this squad on paper, in terms of the way it's stood out, and the reason I mentioned sort of like that split in terms of like you got the over 50 caps, you got that sort of like under 50 and then kind of like an under 10 range, is there's a nice mix of players in this squad. We already mentioned Gomez, Murphy comes back into selection as well, and it's almost like it's I guess sort of like a stark contrast to the way Gustafsson tried to bring in some of the younger players, to bring in sort of like and see where they're at. It's almost like Joe's kind of drip feeding them rather than just throwing them all into the deep end, which I think I'm liking this approach. And I'll play a little bit more audio for you now. I did conduct a one-on-one with Joe Montemurro and then with Kaitlyn Torpey after the formal press conferences were done. So I'll play that for you now.
Joe, obviously you've just selected the squad that's going to take on Mexico. What was your biggest takeaway from having to narrow it down to a 24-player squad?
Look, a lot of it was based on where players were at in terms of their club and that continuity and consistency that we keep on talking about in regards to playing time and performance. And there were a few we just had to make some decisions on performance, where they're at, and obviously continuing the stability of how we're trying to play, and obviously looking at those little details that we can bring forward.
How did the camp in Kenya help you make decisions for this camp as well?
No, the FIFA series in Africa was really important, obviously, to understand the competition that we're up against in regards to African teams. They can be a little bit tricky to play against, but I think it was very, very, very important that we saw the group in their ability to adapt to all different types of conditions, both on and off the pitch, and I think that was really important, and to give that stability that we're looking for in terms of combinations, but also introduce a couple of players that we believe will be for the future. So it was a good camp for us.
Quite a few kids running around today here at the squad launch. Is this one of the rewarding parts of the job?
Oh, look, it's great. It's always fantastic to have the kids. That's what we do it for. We do it for the next generation. We do it for to inspire that next group of young talent that's coming through. So it's always great to have them here, and it's always great to give something back to them.
Well, speaking of the next generation, I've been big for a long time on the next generation of Matildas that needs to come through. I mean, you look at Mackenzie Arnold, she's in her 30s. You look at Sam Kerr in her 30s, Ford, Razzo, all in their 30s. They're not going to be able to play forever. How difficult is it for you having to navigate, keeping the best players, and there's no mistaking that there's some of our best players in the squad in terms of where they're at with their skill set, but also bringing through that next generation who maybe it's after the World Cup, maybe it's after the next Olympics, are going to depart the squad?
For me, it's really simple. They're football decisions. They're not decisions of who you are, where you've come from, or where you've been. I mean, some of them have been absolute fantastic role models for the Matildas going forward, and they still are. From that perspective, for me, it's really simple. It's do they suit the profile that we're trying to play, and high performance. Performances is always going to be the one that's going to be the one that's going to get you into that squad or get us to the level that we need you for the Matildas. So for me, it's obviously a conscious situation to look at that next generation, but that next generation has to be ready. That next generation has to be put in situations where there is a large exposure of international football, where we can gauge them against the best, and more importantly, that they are performing at the highest level consistently. So for me, it's always been a consistent message. Performance at your club, performance in your environment is always going to be the key for you making the Matildas.
You mentioned in the press conference, you're deliberately selecting the opposition to get a whole gamut of styles and experience playing those different sorts of styles. Mexico, obviously, a very well respected squad. One of probably the most different in terms of style of the big three North American teams? How important was it to lock in Mexico?
Really important, and we started this process knowing that we'd have international windows that we needed to fill going forward, and obviously, you know, predicting that we would make the World Cup. You know, it was really, really important that we started off with teams that are at the top echelon of football, but more importantly, teams that will control the game and give us problems in transition. So, you know, they're probably the main areas that we need to be smarter against teams that, you know, probably have a little bit more possession against us, but more importantly, how do we deal with transition moments when we've got the ball? And Mexico have got an abundance of talent. They're a team that is you know, predominantly all the players are playing in Mexico, so they do know each other and come together quite a lot. So the familiarity of them playing together is going to be something that's really important. And you know, all these teams play with a sense of national pride, and you know, I'm trying to really instill that in our team to say that you know, we are, you know, a top team. We are, you know, a unique team, and we also should you know, have that belief of who we are going forward, that we can actually do well at the World Cup.
Did you hit up Emily Giornick for some inside scoops?
It's really funny because I actually do watch a lot of the Mexican League. I've got a lot of colleagues that are working in there, and obviously we are monitoring Em through that process. And look, it's a tough league. It's a tough league, and you know, their national team is coached very well. Pedro Lopez is a very, very good coach, and they've got a lot of players that you know, will find difficult.
And then just sort of, again, going back to the different styles, obviously you had the FIFA series, they were in Africa, in Kenya. You didn't necessarily get to face, you know, the full strength squads that maybe you were hoping to face. And again, I look specifically at Malawi, the Chawinga sisters,
Yep.
You know, were notable absences. Did that sort of maybe, I guess, impact what you took out of that series from a tactical standpoint, knowing that you weren't facing the full strength squads?
Yeah, we had to readjust. We had to readjust some thinking. Obviously, we prepared for Tabby and her sister to be there. But look, you know, in general, a lot of the African teams are very, very good on transition and on the break. You know, they usually have a lot of speed up top, and you know, obviously transition moments is where they look to play. So yes, there was a little bit of an adjustment on the profile of the players, but in terms of dealing with those moments, I think it was quite successful.
Kaitlyn, obviously, you know, back in another Matildas squad, you know, coming up against Mexico, you know, some quality opposition ahead of, you know, on the road to the World Cup.
Yeah, no, it's awesome preparation for us for World Cup. They're a quality team, like you said. They're very technical and, yeah, really fast counter-attacking team. So I'm really excited for the challenge, and I think we'll be ready for it.
You made the move mid-season to Newcastle in the WSL 2, but you know, you were in the NWSL. You're on the same continent as Liga MX Femenil. Did you get a chance to watch much of Liga MX while you were in the NWSL, and you know, given the time zone?
Yeah, no, I didn't watch so much of it, but I know it's a really good league, and I have a few friends that play in it now. So, yeah, I mean, that's mainly where all of the Mexican girls play. So it's a really good league, and that's why I think there'll be really good competitors out there.
What was behind the decision to make the move to England and, you know, join that growing cohort of Australians over in England?
Yeah, I think England is the best football at the moment, the league. So I wanted another challenge, and it's nice being close to some of the girls there, and WSL is the goal, so hopefully next season we get promoted.
Falling short in that promotion race, but you did finish ahead of Nottingham Forest, so you get to wave that over Alana in camp.
Yes, I will be rubbing that in her face, except I can't really when she scored against us, so it's a bit annoying. But yeah, falling short, of course, which wasn't ideal, but it's a new challenge for next season, and I'm really excited for it.
We've seen, there are a couple of players that perhaps look to be leaving England. Sam Kerr comes to mind. Does it sort of, I guess, does the absence of someone like that maybe diminish the profile of Australian players in England, or do you think it helps raise it in the sense that it's like, oh, you know, she's going to seek a new challenge because she's done everything she can in the WSL?
I mean, Sam's one player, there's so many other girls there, so the quality is so good, not just us Aussies, but there's so many great players in the English league, so I don't think it diminishes anything. I think for Sam, like, she's got to follow whatever she wants to do now, and it's her path, and everyone's path is individual. She's been there for some time now, so I haven't experienced England for long, and I'm excited to experience it for the future.
You've come through that infamous Melbourne City pathway. They got that grand final win for the first time since COVID. What was it like getting to watch that?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really nice to be. I was home too, so I was with my parents, so I was watching it with them, which was nice. I love watching the girls so much, especially Melbourne City. It's like family for me there, so I miss them a lot, and it's so nice to see them all do well. The likes of Tish and Holly, they played amazing. So yeah, it was really good to watch them.
Just looking ahead to the Mexico series, Joe said he wanted to face a whole different gamut of styles. Obviously, he had that in the FIFA series. You talked about it being a strong league, a technical league. Mm-hmm. A lot of the players, they represent the jersey with pride as well. I guess how do you expect to get the win in this two-match series?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a really good challenge for us, and we're building something special now. I think we have a lot of confidence going off the Asian Cup. It would be good to have everyone back in camp. The likes of Steph and Mary will be back, all those girls. So, yeah, I mean, I think we need to stick to how we play. They're very technical, they're very fast on the counter-attack, so I think if we can stop that as much as possible, then we'll be fine. But, yeah, we just need to focus on us, really.
I guess sort of before you look ahead, we'll look back a little bit as well. The FIFA series, again, looking at that gamut of styles, got to face two, strong African teams that weren't necessarily at full strength. I think of Malawi in particular, no Chawinga sisters. Did that sort of, I guess, change the preparation and the way that you approach that game as a team?
No, not at all. I think they still have quality without the Chawinga sisters. I mean, I versed Temwa in the NWSL. She's one of the best players I've come up against, so to hear that she wasn't in the squad was quite nice personally. But no, I mean, there's still a lot of quality in that team, so nothing changed for us. And yeah, it was good games that we needed to prepare for Brazil.
You guys also went on African safari on one of your days off. What was that like?
That was honestly awesome. It was bucket list things that we all wanted to tick off, and we were all talking about it for a while before that camp. So yeah, it was amazing that we actually got to do it and to experience it with the girls. It was special.
Burke, I mean, I think Joe summed it up best, both in the formal part of the press conference and the one-on-ones it did afterwards, is that ultimately the players who are getting selected, it comes down to footballing decisions, and the best way that they can work their way into a Matildas squad is the 90 minutes they play in club football week in, week out, and impressing that way. And I think it's nice to have a national team coach after and this is, I mean, depending on which way you want to take it, it depends on whether or not it's a knock on Tony Gustafsson or not. But I said Tony Gustafsson sort of, and I know there was that one camp, that Spain, Portugal, in Europe, where basically everyone everyone had to be rested, and so it was just kind of like everyone gets thrown in the deep end. And then there was that the 5-0 loss to Canada in Canada. Again, a lot of young players thrown in the deep end. Or as I said, it feels like Joe's drip feeding them in. And he's been clear and consistent in his messaging, which is that if you perform the way that he thinks you need to perform, and the way that you can sort of impress and play the sort of football that he wants to play for this national team, that you will get a look in, which I think is important because, as I mentioned, there's a number of the players who have been around for a long time that are over 30 that are going to, they're going to retire eventually. And I think it's not necessarily about forcing those players out before they're ready, but also, you've got to prepare the next generation. And so I think it's nice to see, I almost say Gustafsson, it's nice to see Joe doing it in his own way, but doing it in a consistent way as well.
Yeah, I think this is also something we sort of saw with Tom Samani, where he had all like the major sort of names, and then there was just like a little cluster of them, little cluster of little baby Matildas that we'd either hadn't seen before or hadn't seen too much of before. Which, yeah, I also really like, because like you just said, there are a lot of players that are, at this point we can't, deny it. They are approaching the ends of their careers, at least most likely on an international stage. Um, I think a lot of people maybe overlook the fact that just because an international career ends doesn't mean you can't still have a really successful club career. Like there's like the most prominent sort of figure um, that comes to mind is Kim Little, who's still playing incredible football week in, week out with Arsenal. Um, Shout out to the Premier League winners. Sorry, had to. Um, Even though, yeah, she retired from Scotland on an international level. So even though we may soon be seeing the last of these players' appearances in the green and gold, that doesn't mean you can't still enjoy their football. Like they're not dying. It's not like it's the end forever. For some of them it may be, footballing wise, but there's that too. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how these young players will be implemented. Um, I hope we no one's surprised by this. I hope to see Letitia McKenna. I really do. I really do. I know you're all so shocked. You're so shocked. What? What? I would also really like to see Holly McNamara get some real minutes. I I understand that they do their substitutions the way that they do them, but if I have to watch more junk minutes, I'm sorry, garbage minutes, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. And then you will have to hear about it. But that's actually not really my problem because you choose to listen to this. So, actually, maybe it'll be good for content. Give her more junk minutes. I can rant for 20 minutes about how Holly McNamara needs more than 8 minutes on the pitch. Yeah, looking forward to seeing Izzy Gomez. I'm very excited to see Alana Murphy. You'd be crazy to say you're not excited to see Alana Murphy. And of course, there's potential for some really big milestones as well for the stalwart players as well. Ellie Carpenter is currently on her 99th appearance, so if she plays in either of the games, she will reach 100 appearances, and she's younger than me.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Like I know she had the ACL injury.
Congratulations. Whatever.
I know she had the ACL injury before the World Cup, but like she's been around for a decade already. She is a decade-long Matilda. How is she only reaching 100 caps now?
I simply don't know. But as well as Carpenter possibly hitting cap 100, we've also got Kaitlyn Ford who's sitting at 148. So if she plays both of these games, she'll hit 150, which is huge, huge. Honestly, appearing in even just like 10 national team games is massive considering how like infrequently they play and how good you have to be to get onto the pitch. So to get to 100, to get to 150, just insane numbers. Insane.
Yeah, insane. Indeed. So they'll be taking on Mexico as we touched on already. Joe mentioned, and this is something I thought was funny coming out of the 1v1. He mentioned that he watches a lot of Liga MX, which is very good. I'm a little bit surprised he didn't hit Ngilnik up for any sort of advice, but look,
he probably should. Drop her a text. Be like, hey, is there anyone we should particularly be worried about? We've done our scouting, but who do you think? Give us the inside info.
But yeah, look, I mean, I would expect nothing different from Joe Montemurro watching all these different leagues, all these different players, not just because, who's looking at, who's available for national team selection, but just because he strikes me as one of those real football sickos who's just got football on at all hours of the day. Obviously mentioned the FIFA series was a good camp for what they're trying to do, which was good as well. And then Kaitlyn Torpey, she said she wanted another challenge as a part of why she went to the WSL too. Obviously didn't get promotion. I feel almost bad for bringing up the Nottingham Forest game twice without meaning to. Um,
Twice is like sick. Like, why would you do that to her?
I didn't
Like, you
mean
made
to do it.
The first time I can understand it being like, whatever. Twice is crazy. Why'd you do that?
I did apologize. In my defense, I did apologize, and I will apologize again. But yeah, I guess because we didn't get to hear a lot from the players over the FIFA series. As someone who played against Temwa Chawinga in the NWSL in the season in which she was named NWSL MVP, no less. I did like Torpey's answer. It was just kind of like, oh well, I was a little bit relieved, that I didn't have to come
Fair
up against
play.
it. Which, of course, she did say it in a joking manner, but like, I wouldn't want to be coming up against Temwa Chawinga either.
No, absolutely not. I was excited as someone that didn't have to take the pitch because I thought I would be getting to see the Chawinga sisters ball out. But upon hearing them not being in the squad, either of them, I also was relieved. And I didn't even have to play them. So, fair play. Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough indeed. And then just last thing we're going to touch on this episode of the Dubcast is just some player movement news. So what a shock. Sam Kerr leaving Chelsea as if that hasn't been, almost news for basically the last 6 months. It's confirmed now.
I was about to do a thumbs down, but then I'm like wearing an Arsenal shirt and I'm like, oh.
And as someone who's quite often said, who's that blue team? I don't know who they are on this podcast.
Low key, it's like, yes, I'm free of the demon that is Sam Kerr playing for Chelsea, but also it's like, Chelsea, are you stupid? Like, genuinely, are you stupid? Congratulations to whoever, picks up Sam Kerr, because she's Sam Kerr. I do hope she goes back to the NWSL and just scores another metric ton of goals, just to kind of further annoy the Americans that she's the all-time leading goal scorer. And I want her to put that record even further out of reach.
I mean, that would be fun. Not gonna lie. Okay, I'm gonna get like real conspiracy brained. Big idea areas.
I hate conspiracy theories on this podcast. No, don't.
Okay. There is another talented striker in the WSL looking for a new club at the moment. Bunny Shaw to Chelsea, Sam Kerr to Man City.
All right. You may be going too far even for me. Known tinfoil hat wearer. Like that. Listen. I fear there may be like a riot in the stands should that swap happen when that game is played. And also,
look, it's not going to happen. I don't.
Oh no,
it's absolutely not going to happen.
If it were to happen, I fear there would be a riot. Also, who else is a striker that knows the city football style and has just finished her contract? She was touted, allegedly, to play EPL football. But I don't think she meets the requirements.
Could be talking about.
Holly McNamara, would you like to go to England?
Would you like to go play for Man City?
Women in the Women's Super League. I'm not saying that she will, but you can't say that she won't. She already knows city football.
Yeah,
She's a proven striker.
If there's one thing we know about the way the City Football Group operates is that they like to move players around from club to club within the City Football Group.
Does it count as insider trading on like a literal sense in that they are insiders, like they're inside? Sorry, I had to. Maybe it is, but yes. I mean, I feel a move is definitely on the cards for Holly Mac, considering if it's internal, as in she goes to another A-Leagues team, I may start writing angry letters to people. I don't know who. There may just be a stranger that receives a letter that just says, I'm really upset about it.
Dear Mr. Royal Hampton. If you get that reference, I love you. No, look, I feel for Holly Mack. It's Melbourne City or not at all if she's staying in the A-Leagues. I mean, look, I think Man City might be a good, it would probably be a good fit for her. I think it'd be, at least she's familiar with the style. At least she, would be in an environment somewhat that's, familiar to her. Just from a setup perspective. So I've heard worse ideas, including my player swap. That's definitely a worse idea. And then the other ones that are on the little list I have right now. 4 names announced by Melbourne Victory as departing: Rachel Lowe, Kennedy White, Peyton Woodward, and Natalie Pickak. All depart at the end of their contracts. Rachel Lowe, I thought was the interesting one of that list, given that she just won the victory medal, clearly well liked by the coaching staff. So that departure did come as a little bit surprise to me, but yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm too shocked otherwise.
Yeah. The Rachel Lowe exit, definitely one of the more surprising ones that I've seen so far at the end of this season. I wonder where she'll pop up next. I do wonder if it's an A-Leagues, like if it's an internal league-wide move. Maybe she goes back to Sydney, but even then, it's like they'd have to be promising her the world after the finish they've had. No offense, Sydney FC fans. Just look at the table. You can't tell me I'm wrong. Or if maybe she'll try overseas. I mean, we know she's a quality player. I don't see why she wouldn't be able to hack it in a WSL2. Don't know why. Not. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, plenty of places for her to pop up in world football.
The other one is Katrina Gorry, who exits.
I thought I mentioned
Ham.
Katrina Gorry leaving West Ham. Yes, no, Katrina Gorry is confirmed as leaving West Ham. WSL as well. Thank you, Burke. I had that here on my list, and I thought I mentioned it, but clearly I didn't. In case you can't tell, it's been a long day.
You just miss her sometimes. She's just so teeny tiny.
I mean, I am really tall. If you looked at a photo of myself and Burke side by side, you will know how tall I am.
And I genuinely am just an average height. I really am. Anyway, Katrina Gorry exiting West Ham. I think she's been a great player for them. She kind of really seems to win the hearts of the fans wherever she tends to go. I do wonder if she'll pop up back here. I wonder if return to Brisbane is on the cards. I think it is. But that, I'm not saying that based off of any actual knowledge. I don't have insider information. I barely have outsider information. I just think it'd make sense. So, we'll see.
I mean, a fully fit Tamika Yallop alongside Katrina Gorry, alongside Momo Hayashi in a midfield 3. Sign me up for that.
Even just Meeks and Gorry. Is it 2014? What year is it?
It's like that calendar meme, the fake George Orwell one, where it's just blah blah blah. What year is it? And the calendar's just got 1984 on it as you're flipping it over.
Exactly. Except we're pulling back to 2012 or something.
But I mean, I certainly think that it'll do wonders for Brisbane, a midfield trio of those 3. I could see it working, to be honest. But yeah, so that will do for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Round Ball Australia podcast network. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll be back at some point before the Matildas game to do our A-League Women season review episode, and then we'll be back after the Matildas games as well to chat about those before we take a little bit of a break. Take a girl boss power nap. It's been a long season, and we need our beauty sleep.
We really, really do. It's been so long.
It's been 84 years.
It really, genuinely, it may as well have been. I feel like I've aged 84 years, honestly.
Yeah, but we look forward to your company over the next few weeks as we sort of see out the season, take a couple of weeks off, and then there'll be bits of content popping up in and out, a number of different interviews and stuff like that with people from around Australian women's football. We look forward to bringing you in the off season. It just won't necessarily be the weekly podcast that we've done, which is what we did last year. If you're a long time listener to the show, you've got the idea by now. But as always, hit the little notification bell so that way you get notified whenever we drop a new episode on into your podcast feeds or on YouTube, so you can see our new content when we release it. Particularly over the off season. But for Burke, my name is Poletti. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.